Have you ever felt that gut-wrenching shock when the people you trusted most, your own family, slowly turned against you? Not in a loud fight, but in a quiet, hurtful way that just shatters your heart. If you've ever felt that deep, personal betrayal from those who are supposed to protect you, then you know the ache I'm talking about. Today, I'm going to share the moment my own family decided I no longer belonged. It was incredibly painful, completely unfair, but it also led to a surprising turning point you won't see coming. If you're ready to hear about finding strength, even after the worst heartbreak, please like this video and subscribe. You might just find a piece of your own journey in mine. You ruined our lives, get out. Imagine hearing those words screamed at you, words meant to cut deep by the person your son chose to marry. And then your own son, David, the one you raised, just stands there, silent, no defense, no help, just silence. My granddaughter, Chloe, barely an adult, throwing things. My grandson, Liam, watching it all, wide-eyed, unblinking. No one helped. No one stopped them. So what do you do when your own family, the people you've dedicated your life to, look at you like you're trash? You pack one bag, walk out the door, and step into the biting cold with no idea where you're going or what you're doing. I was utterly heartbroken, confused, and honestly numb. I had no idea what I had ruined. I just knew I had to leave. A month later, my phone started buzzing like crazy. Non-stop calls, over 50 missed calls. And then one single message that made my blood run cold. Mom, please. It's about Liam. He's missing. That's when it hit me. They weren't calling to apologize. They weren't calling because they missed me. They were calling because their whole tangled web of lies was about to blow up, and they needed me. Suddenly, my pain, my exile, felt like part of a much bigger, much darker secret. I can't even remember what I was doing the exact moment it all started. Probably folding towels, just like any other day. That was my routine. My quiet, unnoticed rhythm in their house. Then it was like a bomb exploded. You ruined our lives. You ruined us. That was Sarah, my son David's wife, her voice sharp and loud, screaming from the kitchen. Then Chloe, their 22-year-old daughter, my granddaughter, screeched right over her. You had to open your damn mouth. And then Megan, Sarah's younger sister, who seemed to live there more than I did, chimed in with a smug smirk. Well, say something. Eleanor, you proud of yourself? I stepped into the hallway, still holding one of David's t-shirts, my only child, the boy I'd poured everything into. They were all standing there, lined up, like they rehearsed it. Sarah was in her silk robe, her face a fiery red, clutching some papers I didn't recognize. And David? He just stood behind her, arms crossed, mouth shut. Always silent when things got ugly. He never defended me. Never. What did I do? I asked, my voice barely a whisper, even though my heart was pounding against my ribs. Chloe just laughed, a cruel, sharp sound. Don't play stupid. You talked, and now we're screwed. I looked at David, pleading for an answer, but he just looked away. Sarah stepped closer, her eyes blazing. Everything we've built gone. Because you can't shut your damn mouth on a phone call. I genuinely didn't understand. I hadn't said anything to anyone, not about them. I didn't gossip. I barely left the house. I just kept to myself, just like they always wanted. If you want to scream at me, fine, I said, my voice calmer than I felt, but at least tell me what I'm being punished for. Megan crossed her arms, mocking me. Oh, she wants an explanation now. She wants a little chat. Sarah shoved the papers right in my face. Do you even realize what you said about David's jobs to people who report that stuff? My stomach dropped. A memory flickered to life. A phone call a week ago. The doctor's office. The woman had asked questions about household income. I'd mentioned David sometimes worked side jobs, even though he was on disability. I hadn't thought anything of it. Just small talk, I assumed. I never imagined it would. No, David finally spoke, cutting me off. You didn't think. That's always been your problem. I took a step back, my fingers going numb. From down the hall, Liam, my 17-year-old grandson, Chloe's younger brother, stood half in the shadows, earbuds in. He didn't say a word, didn't move. Just watched Chloe grabbed something from the table, a slipper, and hurled it at the wall behind me. You've done enough damage, she snapped. Get out. Sarah nodded as if it were already decided. You're not staying in this house another night? I walked slowly to my room. No one stopped me. I put the folded t-shirt in my bag, took only what I needed. A coat, my purse, my pills. I left the rest. As I zipped the bag, I could hear their voices, still talking, planning, venting, celebrating. Megan even said something like, took long. Enough. I walked back down the hallway past Liam. He still didn't move. I opened the front door. The air hit me, cold and wet, but it didn't matter. I stepped outside. One bag, no car, no plan, and I still didn't fully understand what I had supposedly ruined. A month before that chaotic day, the house felt exactly the same. Quiet, controlled, heavy, but nothing had detonated yet. I woke up every day around 6 a.m., not because anyone needed me to, but because that's what I'd done for 40 years. I'd make coffee, fold the towels Sarah left in the dryer, wipe down the counters before anyone else stirred. No one asked me to, and no one thanked me. That was the rhythm. Liam would pass through the kitchen around 7, never looking up from his phone. Chloe never emerged before 10 a.m., usually complaining about a headache or a job she didn't want to go to. Sarah would glide in mid-morning, eyebrows already arched, checking her phone and telling me she really wished the house could be quiet in the mornings. I always tried to be invisible. That was the rule, even if it was never said out loud. David worked nights sometimes, sometimes not. I stopped asking questions about that years ago. There were stretches where he stayed home for weeks, claiming back pain or paperwork issues. All I knew was the tension between him and Sarah got worse every time money ran low. I didn't ask because I knew asking turned me into a problem. My room was technically the guest room, tucked in the back near the laundry machines. No window, just a vent that made weird noises at night. My things were stacked in plastic bins because the closet was already full of Sarah's winter coats and Chloe's extra shoes. I had one dresser drawer to myself. I didn't complain. I told myself they let me stay here. That's enough. Megan started showing up more around that time. She didn't live there, but she might as well have. Always walking in without knocking. Always pouring herself coffee I bought. Always making little comments like, still hanging around, huh, Eleanor? Sarah never stopped her. David never noticed. Megan had this way of making me feel like a squatter in my own son's house. She'd flip through mail on the counter like it was hers, or put her feet on the table while watching TV. Chloe loved her. They were like sisters, even more than Sarah and Megan were. The house felt like a sorority I wasn't allowed to join. One morning, I was making toast when Megan came in, wearing Sarah's robe like she owned the place. She poured coffee and leaned on the counter. Hey, Eleanor, she said, her voice sweet as vinegar. You talked to anyone at the clinic lately? I looked up, surprised. Just some insurance lady. Why? She shrugged. Just curious. They always ask nosy questions, don't they? I nodded. They asked about who lives here, income, the usual. She smiled. A little too wide. Hope you didn't say anything they could twist. Government's tricky like that. I remember frowning but letting it go. I didn't think twice. That day I went back to folding laundry, wiping counters, staying out of the way. But something about the way Megan looked at me lingered. Like she knew something I didn't. Like she'd just planted something and was waiting for it to grow. It was a Tuesday morning, the kind where nothing feels urgent. I was in the kitchen, folding napkins when my cell rang. One of those routine clinic follow-up calls. I'd gone in for blood pressure and a refill. Nothing serious. The woman on the phone was polite, reading from a form, asking if my address was still the same, who else lived in the home, whether anyone in the household contributed financially. I answered honestly without thinking. My son David owns the house, I said. He's on disability, but he does little cash jobs here and there to help cover things. That was the truth. I didn't say it to hurt him. I didn't even think it was a secret. I assumed it was common knowledge. Something everyone did to get by. The woman didn't respond much. She just said, and moved on to the next checkbox. The call lasted maybe 10 minutes. I hung up and went back to wiping the counter. I didn't notice that Megan was sitting at the kitchen island until she spoke. They ask a lot of weird questions, don't they? I looked over. She was sipping her coffee, smirking like she'd been waiting for me to look at her. I didn't see you there, I said. Didn't need to be seen, she replied, then added, hope you didn't say anything too spicy. I frowned. Just the usual. Who lives here? What we all do. Nothing strange. She raised her eyebrows and said, the government doesn't play when it comes to income, right? Then she slid off the stool and walked away, still grinning. Something in my gut twisted, but I ignored it. I went about the day like normal, thinking nothing of it. That night, David came home late. He barely looked at me. Sarah said nothing at all. It was quiet. I paid the first month in cash and didn't leave my name. The landlord didn't ask questions. The only furniture was a metal frame bed, a nightstand with one drawer that stuck, and a chip dresser that leaned to the right like it had given up. I unpacked slowly, placing my folded clothes into the bottom drawer and my photo album under the bed. I taped a small note above the sink. Breathe. You're not there anymore. I wasn't scared at first, just tired. I made instant oatmeal every morning, watched reruns of game shows on low volume, and listened to the neighbors yell about lottery tickets and laundry schedules. It was strange how peace felt like noise when you hadn't had it in so long. For the first few days, my phone was silent, and I was grateful. No texts, no calls, no fake pleasantries from Sarah, no guilt trips from David. I told myself this was what I wanted, what I needed, to disappear, to breathe. But silence has a way of turning cruel when it lingers too long. By the end of the second week, I found myself glancing at my phone a little too often, opening the contacts list and hovering over Liam's name, then closing it again. I never messaged him. I didn't want to drag him into anything. He'd stayed out of the mess. Or so I thought. The first missed call came on a Sunday morning. I was pouring tea when the screen lit up. David. I stared at it, let it ring, and turned the phone over. 5 minutes later, Sarah, then Chloe, all in a row. I didn't answer any of them. An hour passed. Another call, this time from a number I didn't recognize, then 2 voicemails. I didn't check them. Not yet. That night, I turned the phone off and buried it under a towel. The next morning, it was worse. 10 missed calls, 3 voicemails, 2 texts, both from David. The first said, "We need to talk. It's about Liam." The second said nothing but one word, "Please." That one stopped me cold. I sat on the edge of the bed, phone in my lap, heart thumping. Whatever was happening, they weren't calling to apologize. They needed something. But from me after everything, I forced myself to listen to one voicemail. It was Chloe's voice, but different this time. Shaky, high, raw. "Grandma, please. He's missing. Liam's gone. We can't find him. Just call back if you hear anything. Okay? My whole body locked up. I replayed it 3 times, missing, gone. My mind went wild. It ran through every possibility, every dark corner, every street he could be wandering. I hadn't spoken to him, hadn't reached out, hadn't even asked how he was after I left. I turned the phone off again. This time, not out of spite, but because I couldn't breathe. In 1 month, they hadn't cared if I was alive. Now they were flooding my phone, and the only thought I could hold on to was this. Liam had always been the quiet one, the watcher, the one who didn't yell. If he was gone, something had pushed him there. And I had a terrible feeling that I already knew what. I didn't sleep that night, not even a minute. I lay there on the creaky mattress, my phone face down on the nightstand, staring at the water stain on the ceiling that looked like a crooked heart. Every sound outside made me jolt. Footsteps, a car horn, someone slamming a dumpster. And every time I thought of Liam, my chest squeezed like I couldn't get air dot by morning. I couldn't take it anymore. I turned the phone on, and immediately the notifications flooded in. 17 missed calls, 3 more voicemails, and a handful of texts. All of them saying the same thing. He's missing. He left a note. We don't know where he is. Please call us. I didn't trust them, not after everything, but I couldn't ignore it either. I called his school. The secretary transferred me to the counselor, a woman named Ms. Reed, who remembered me from one parent-teacher night years ago. She paused when I asked if she'd heard anything about Liam. Then she said carefully, "He's been having a tough time at home lately. He told me he wished he could live with you." I froze. "Did something happen?" I asked. She lowered her voice. "Last week, he got into a fight with his sister. He said she told him he was weak for defending you. Then she kicked him out of her room and told him to go live with his precious grandma if he loved her so much." The words hit like a punch. I felt heat rise up my neck. "Did he leave school?" "No," she said quickly. "He came the next day, but he was quiet. I told him he could always come to me if something happened. That was the last real conversation we had." I hung up and sat in the middle of the bed, fingers clenched in my lap. They lied to me. All those voicemails, all that panic, they made it sound like he vanished. But the truth was, he was pushed, shoved out emotionally, maybe even physically. They made him feel unsafe and then tried to pin the fallout on me. Like I was the one who'd abandoned him. My phone rang again. Sarah. I let it ring. Then Megan. Decline. Then David. I answered that one. "Hello," I said. There was a pause. "Mom." His voice cracked, and for a second I heard the old version of him. The scared boy who used to call me from gas stations when his car broke down. "What happened?" I asked, calm but cold. "He's gone," David said. "We're doing everything we can. The police said they'll file a report if he doesn't come back tonight. We don't know where he is. He didn't take his phone." I didn't respond, not yet. I let the silence hang there. "We thought maybe he came to you," he added. "Why would he do that?" I asked out another pause. "Then, because you're the only person he still talks about like he trusts." That one landed. I said nothing. I didn't tell him what the counselor said. I didn't tell him I knew Chloe pushed him out, or that I could already imagine Megan whispering that he was too soft, too loyal to an old woman they'd long since decided didn't matter. I said only this: if I hear from him, I'll let you know. Then I hung up. I sat there gripping the edge of the bed, heart pounding. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a runaway. This was what happens when a kid finally sees the truth and the people around him don't want him to. And if Liam showed up at my door, I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't sending him back. It was just past noon the next day when I got the call. Unknown number, no voicemail, just one single ring that didn't even finish before it cut off. I stared at it for a second, then hit redial. expecting silence or some scam message. But someone picked up. Hello? A young male voice answered, uncertain. I didn't recognize it. This is Eleanor, I said cautiously. I'm trying to reach Liam. There was a pause, then a deep breath. Yeah, hang on. The phone shifted, muffled movement, a door creaked, and then I heard him. Grandma, he said, voice small and shaky, like he hadn't spoken in hours. Liam, I breathed. Are you okay? Where are you? I'm safe, he said quickly. I'm with Michael. He let me crash at his place. I didn't know what else to do. I didn't want to go to school today and have them call home. My knees gave out, and I sat down on the edge of the bed. Are you hurt? Do you need anything? No, he said, just, can I come to you? The question cracked something in me. Of course. Anytime, right now. He was quiet for a beat, then said, They lied, didn't they? They made it sound like I ran away, but they kicked me out. I didn't need to ask what happened. I already knew, but I wanted him to say it, to hear his voice form. The truth. What did they say to you? Chloe called me a traitor, he said, his voice tight, like he was trying not to cry. She said I was pathetic for defending you, said if I loved you so much, I should just go live with you. Then she opened my door and threw my stuff into the hallway. Sarah didn't say anything. Megan laughed. David told me to just let it go and stop being dramatic. I closed my eyes. My hands were trembling. You didn't do anything wrong, I said softly. They just didn't like that you saw them for who they really are. He was quiet again. Then he whispered, I didn't want you to leave. I wanted to say something, but I didn't know how. I know, I said. You don't have to explain anything. Can you come get me? He asked. Michael's place is a couple neighborhoods over. I can send you the address. Yes, I said immediately. I'll be there as soon as I can. He texted me the address right after we hung up. I grabbed my coat, my bag, and walked out without looking back. The bus ride was slow, every stop feeling like a test of my nerves. Every loud noise outside making me check my phone to make sure he hadn't changed his mind. When I finally got there, he was sitting on the front steps with his hoodie pulled up, duffel bag at his feet. He stood up when he saw me, and for a second I thought he might fall apart right there, but he didn't. He hugged me. Not a quick, polite hug, but the kind that says, you were the only person who ever made me feel safe. I hugged him back, just as tightly. We didn't talk much on the ride back. He kept his hood up, head down, earbuds in, and I didn't push. When we got to my apartment, he looked around like it was a new world, small but calm, and whispered, This already feels better. I made him tea and let him sit in silence. He didn't ask about the others. He didn't say their names. He just unpacked, slowly, folded his clothes neatly, and placed his phone face down on the nightstand like he didn't want it to exist. That night, he slept like a stone. No footsteps, no yelling, no locked doors, just quiet, just peace. And for the first time since I walked out that house, I didn't feel alone. The knock came 2 days later, sharp and fast, like someone wasn't going to wait for an invitation. I knew it was them before I even looked through the peephole. Sarah stood on the other side in a beige trench coat, like she was pretending to be someone she wasn't. And David was next to her, looking down at his shoes like a teenager caught cheating on a test. I didn't open the door right away. I let them stand there, knocking again, then again, until finally I cracked it open and stepped halfway into the frame. We just want to talk, Sarah said quickly, her eyes darting past me like she was checking if Liam was home. This isn't a fight, David added, still not making eye contact. I didn't say anything. I just opened the door a little wider and stepped aside. They walked in like they owned the place, immediately moving to the small kitchen table like it was a conference room. Sarah crossed her legs and smiled in a way that didn't touch her eyes. "We're here because we're worried," she began. "About Liam, about how all this looks." I raised an eyebrow. "How it looks to who?" She hesitated. "The school, the neighbors, child services. He's 17. People are asking questions." I leaned against the counter. "And whose idea was it to throw his things into the hallway?" That wiped the smile off her face. David shifted in his seat. He was acting out, he muttered. He called us out in front of everyone. Said we were abusive. You know how that sounds to people. "Sounds like he was telling the truth," I said, still calm. "He was scared? You didn't like that?" Sarah sat up straighter. "You don't know what it's like raising 2 kids, managing bills, dealing with a sister who never leaves and a mother-in-law you wanted out from day one." I finished for her. "Let's not pretend this conversation is about Liam's well-being. It's about damage control." Her mouth twitched, but she didn't deny it. David finally looked up. "Is he okay?" he asked. "He hasn't answered any of our calls. He's safe," I said. "And?" "No, he doesn't want to go back. He made that very clear." Sarah scoffed. "He's a child. He doesn't get to decide everything. He's 17, I said. Old enough to know when he's being manipulated. Old enough to know who actually shows up when things get." Bad. She leaned forward. "So what? You think you can just keep him? You live in a shoebox." "Better a shoebox full of peace than a house full of poison," I said. The silence that followed was thick. They looked at each other, then back at me. "So what do you want?" David asked. "You're going to keep him just like that?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes, unless he tells me otherwise." Sarah's voice rose slightly. "You don't have custody. You don't have rights." We were trying to make this civil. I walked to the door and opened it. "If you were trying to be civil, you wouldn't have waited until your lies started unraveling to show up. Liam's not your shield. He's not your cleanup crew. He's a kid you broke because he dared to care about someone you decided didn't matter. Neither of them moved. If he wants to talk to you, he'll let you know. Until then, don't come back." They stood slowly. Sarah glared like she wanted to say something else, but for once she didn't. David nodded once, then turned and followed her out. I locked the door behind them. Liam came out of the bathroom a few minutes later. He didn't ask who it was. He just looked at me and said, "Did you tell them?" "Everything they needed to hear," I replied. He nodded and went back to brushing his teeth. That night, we made grilled cheese and watched a stupid comedy on mute. Neither of us laughed much, but it was quiet. It was ours, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I was living in someone else's shadow. Liam stayed home, doing his schoolwork right there at my tiny kitchen table. It felt good, just having him there, safe. When they finally called my name, I met with a woman, Miss Harlow. She was direct and knew her job. She started asking the kind of questions I'd never been brave enough to answer out loud before. Has he been abandoned, physically hurt, denied school or food? I told her everything, carefully and honestly, without adding drama. I explained how Liam had been hurt emotionally, how they threw him out. I told her I had voicemails and text. I told her how his own school counselor had said he didn't feel safe at home. I even showed her the call logs and the mean social media posts Chloe made the night I left, including the one where she was laughing and called me the parasite. Miss Harlow's face didn't change much, but I saw how fast she was writing notes. "You're not his legal guardian," she said. "But based on what you've shown me, we can ask for emergency temporary custody." My stomach fluttered with a mix of fear and hope. "Will it work?" I asked. "Depends on the judge," she replied, "but it'll force a hearing." And based on this, she tapped the printed messages. "You're on solid ground." I left that office with paperwork in my bag, and I felt a little taller, a little stronger than I had in weeks. When I got home, Liam was sitting exactly where I'd left him, headphones on, a plate of toast nearby. He looked up and gave me a small smile. Just a little one, but it was enough. I told him what I'd done, and he just nodded like he already knew I would. You don't have to fight them, he said. I'm not going back there. I'm not fighting them for them, I said, looking right at him. I'm doing it so no one can take you away from where you're finally safe. It was about protecting him, and in doing so, finally protecting myself. That next week moved slowly. I waited for the hearing date, cleaned everything over and over, and cooked more food than either of us could ever eat. Liam started sleeping better. He even joked a little more, sat closer to me on the couch, and didn't flinch when the neighbor slammed their door too hard. One night, he showed me a drawing he did for art class. It was just pencil on paper, a small apartment with light coming through a window, and 2 chairs at a table. It looked exactly like my little place. I didn't cry, but I kept that drawing under my pillow for days. It was a picture of our peace. The hearing finally came. It wasn't dramatic like in movies. No grand speeches, no banging gavel. Just a judge, 2 lawyers, and a big pile of proof. David didn't even show up. Sarah did, but she barely spoke. Her lawyer tried to say I tricked Liam, but the judge read the texts, the voicemails, the school counselor's letter. He listened. He looked at me, then at Liam, then at Sarah, and then he signed the order. Temporary custody granted. I walked out of that courthouse holding Liam's hand, like he was 5 years old again, not 17. We didn't say anything on the ride home. We didn't need to. When we got inside, I made dinner, mac and cheese with real butter, not the powdered kind. And we ate sitting on the floor because we still didn't have a proper table. But it didn't matter, because that night, I knew no one could take him from me. No one could silence us again. And the family that once used guilt and power to keep me small had just lost the only person who ever saw me clearly. This wasn't about getting back at them. It was about making sure that painful cycle stopped right there. With me, it's been 2 months since the court gave me temporary custody. And in that time, not one person from that old house has knocked on my door again. No calls, no voicemails, no Megan, no Chloe, no Sarah showing up with fake apologies. Even David stayed gone. At first, I thought maybe they were regrouping, planning some legal pushback, but the silence stayed. And then I realized why. They didn't lose Liam by accident. They gave him up the moment he stopped being useful to them. He wasn't their golden boy anymore, their obedient little buffer. He was mine now. Not in a way you own someone, but in the way someone chooses to stay by your side when everyone else told them to leave. Our apartment is still small, still cheap, still loud from the nail salon downstairs. But now there's art on the wall, Liam's drawings, and grocery lists taped to the fridge, and 2 chairs at the table instead of 1. I make breakfast, and he actually eats it. He does his schoolwork on the couch while I knit or read or water the fake plant by the window that I keep forgetting isn't real. We laugh sometimes, not every day, but enough. Enough to remember what it's like to feel safe in your own space. The other day, Liam asked me if I thought I'd ever go back to the old house, not to live, just to talk. I told him the truth. I didn't leave because they kicked me out, I said. I left because I finally realized they were never going to stop trying to convince me I didn't matter. He didn't say anything, just nodded and passed me the last piece of toast. I don't know what the future looks like. I'm not foolish. I know temporary custody is just that, temporary. But for now, he's here with me, choosing this. And I won't let anyone take that from him again. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about the moment I walked out of the house. How cold the air was, how alone I felt, how ashamed I was, like I'd failed somehow. But now I know I didn't fail. I survived, I adapted. I protected the only one who ever truly saw me. And in doing that, I finally protected myself. They said I ruined their lives. They screamed it like it was the absolute truth. But the truth is, I didn't ruin their lives. I just refused to lie for them. I stopped covering for them. I walked away from the role they cast me in, quiet, small, disposable, and I took their scapegoat with me. Now he's just a boy doing homework in a warm apartment, and I'm just a woman making tea in a quiet room, finally unafraid of her own voice. I didn't ruin their life. They tried to ruin mine, and they failed. If any part of my story today resonated with you, if you've ever felt that pain of being misunderstood or pushed aside by those you love, know this: you are not alone. And you have the strength within you to find your own peace, to build your own safe haven, even from the ashes of heartbreak. I hope this helped you feel seen, or maybe even gave you a little spark of hope. If it did, please let me know in the comments below. Share your own thoughts. What's one moment when you truly stood up for yourself, even when it was incredibly difficult? Your stories matter, and they help all of us feel a little less alone. For anyone who's ever felt unseen, unheard, or cast aside by those who should have cherished them, I hope my words today brought you a moment of validation. This is a safe space where real stories of resilience unfold. If you're ready to find connection, share your own truth when you're ready, and be part of a community that truly understands, then comment below, subscribe to this channel, and press the bell icon. Your voice matters here,